This is Examine Leadership Podcast. Look closer. Be better. Today's episode is a conversation I recently had with Olympic athlete Tyrone Smith. He has represented Bermuda in the long jump 3 times, soon to be 4 times, more than almost any other Olympic athlete from Bermuda. He holds, in fact, the record for Bermuda's long jump, along with a slew of other records which we'll review in today's conversation. This wasn't a formal interview. It was more of a casual conversation. Tyrone and I went to high school together, but I recorded the conversation and Tyrone has been gracious enough to allow me to publish this on Examine Leadership Podcast. Not only is Tyrone an amazing athlete, he's an incredible human being. One of the best people I've ever had the privilege of knowing in my life. So please enjoy today's episode, an interview with Tyrone Smith.
What's up, man?
What's cracking?
Oh, dang. I was just telling Friendly, it has been almost 2 decades since I seen you.
Nah.
Yeah, we graduated 2002.
Right? But didn't I see you once since then?
I don't think so.
I saw you once. I don't know. I could be wrong. It's been a long time regardless.
I know you went and stayed at my house, my mama's house in Ohio when I was on my mission. Might be. Anyway, been a long time. Hey, I hope you don't mind. I just put record on my
Oh yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So I plan to use this for a few different things actually. I'm writing a book and I'm doing a podcast right now. This quarantine is great, man. I've never been so productive in my life these last few weeks.
I've been enjoying the downtime. So originally I was going to Arkansas for my spring break because that's where Sandy lives. And it was a 2-week spring break. And then they extended it another week. So we got 3 weeks together and we were just mad bored, like just TV shows. And I mean, we were going to practice. So we would practice. And that's the thing about it. Like even when the world was shutting down, like we still had to train. So it would still eat up a good chunk of time during the day. And then when the facilities were closed, we were just like, we don't know what to do because the weather was terrible on top of that. So raining outside and everything. So, but yeah, I haven't been very productive, but I start school tomorrow, all online on Zoom. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting.
That's what's up, man. Well, good on you. So I thought you guys were married, or you guys don't live in the same place?
Nah, so, yeah, we got married in October. But, you know, since she's an athlete as well, she got her whole setup in Arkansas. And I came to school. I was in Houston prior, but came out to Austin to get the MBA. I applied a few different places, ended up being the best kind of fit for me. And yeah, so she's got her dreams and everything. And if anybody understands that, it's me. So she's still doing her thing. She's probably going to be moving in the next year or so to the East Coast. I'm targeting like East Coast companies or East Coast positions for like post-business school and everything. So
nice.
After one more full year, we should be up in the same spot.
Y'all a serious power couple, man.
I don't know. Just got to make it work, man.
Serious power couple. Yeah, she's a pole vaulter, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. You guys met where? How? Track meet or what?
We met so we were on tour in Europe, and we were at this meet in Amsterdam. And she was a rookie and hanging out with one of my good friends who's a pole vaulter. And usually what happens at these big meets is like they cater the meals, like all the athletes kind of eat in the same, like you can come to dinner between 5 and 7 or 7 or whatever. So I go down and get food with my homeboy and I see my homegirl Mary. I'm like, yo, Mary, what's up? And she's like, oh, it's my friend Sandy. She's new. She just graduated from, undergrad and everything. It's like, all right, it's cool. What's up? And we kicked it. We ended up having the next track meet together as well, which was in Croatia. And it was like the last meet of the year. And so everybody's partying it up afterwards. They throw a big party for the athletes. And so we were just like kicking it for hours. And we didn't see each other for like another year after that. But that was the opening ceremony for Rio. And we kind of like locked eyes during the ceremony. And it was pretty much game over from that point forward. So, yeah.
Game over.
Yep.
Tell you what, man, you used to be a skinny dude. I'm sitting here looking how broad your shoulders are. You got...
I'm still skinny though.
Oh no, you got seriously ripped. That picture I saw you. Russell commented it on Facebook. It's like, man, there's some good pictures of y'all in there. You jumping with your thigh just bulging.
Bro, I always tell people that. I mean, I don't know how good of an athlete I could have been in high school had I had, proper nutrition and all that kind of stuff. Because I remember I know you remember, man. I was eating like a couple meals a day, trash meals on top of that. Best food I had is when I was hanging out with you guys. So,
well, that's what I'm saying. Yo, your story legit needs to be a book. Like, I hope one of these books you're writing, I'm not playing, is like your autobiography. If not, I'm gonna write it for you. This is the first interview of your biography. I'm not playing. Your story, like at least once a month, I'll think of Tyrone. I'm like, dang, how would it feel to be Tyrone Smith? To be you are the most successful person I know personally.
Man, it's interesting. You know, I've gained a lot of success on the track. I've been all over the world and everything.
Yeah.
And you know, I've had nice cars, and you know, I owned a house and all that kind of stuff. But you know, what determines success? You know, I mean, what's the real definition of it? Because one thing that I've learned through my own experiences, and also listening to people who are far more successful, from recording artists to athletes or whatever, is that when you have that kind of like passion that I don't know where it comes from, like some people have it, some people don't. Like nothing's ever enough. Like, so it's never successful enough. And it's easy to, sometimes you get complacent and then you're like, well, I'm still doing big things, but what am I doing that's moving me forward? You know, what's the next thing on the horizon? So I'm actually going through a little bit of a, you know, identity crisis here in a second, because I was planning to retire after the Tokyo Olympics. This is supposed to be my last track season. Now it's postponed. So now I'm having to decide, do I sacrifice another year of things I could be doing at school to benefit the rest of my life, or to chase this dream down one more time? And you make all these plans, and you make plans and things don't always come together the way that you want them to. They rarely do, in fact. So I'm going through a whole lot right now, trying to figure out what the next step is going to be in the near future.
Yeah, that's a punch in the gut, man. The Olympics canceled. That sucks.
Man, Sandy and I were doing nonstop interviews. I mean, she was doing more than me. Obviously, she's got a bit bigger profile than I do, but she was on Sports Center. We did CNN together. I did Chicago Tribune. Like, everyone's asking, what do you think? Is it going to be postponed? Be canceled? How do you feel? What are your plans? How are you training? Because everybody that's in the non-dictatorial world has their facilities shut down right now. Like, the Russians are still training, the Cubans are training, like, they're good. But like, everybody else is locked up in the crib.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you, because I'm recording this, so I want to ask you some of those questions about what is your next step? But going back to what you said about success, I'm going to tell you what success is to me. Every time I see you, you're smiling, you're happy. Happiness to me is successful. Even with the difficulties and challenges you've had in your life, you've always been one of the most cheerful people I've ever met. You're a positive influence on people. You're inspirational. I mean, success, if you ain't got success, ain't nobody got success. Even athletically, every time I look at you, you're the top salesman to an Audi, right?
Yeah.
Success, man.
Yeah, I think, so I have a therapist I started seeing about a year ago to help me get through some, I have a lot of traumas from when I was a kid and all that kind of stuff. And, we talk about happiness and success and all that. And for me, it was, for some strange reason, I seem to have this positive outlook and this positive approach to life, despite what I've gone through. And I've met people in my life who have this like negative approach, this negative attitude to life, despite the positive things that they've had in their life, like the lack of challenges or the lack of adversity that they've had to face. So I don't know how to I don't know what the formula was, but
I wish you could tell me. I wish you could tell me, because growing up, I know I had more advantages than you growing up. But even still, sometimes I look back and I'm mad at things that happened in my childhood. Oh man, I was disadvantaged because of that. Oh man, did that to me or whatever. And then I say, well, hold on, I got no reason to complain. People had it a whole lot more difficult than me. So your positive outlook is inspiring.
Well, and that goes for everyone. I definitely had my challenges and hurdles that were placed in my way, but there are people out there who have higher degrees of success that started with less. It's I don't know. I think there's a pivotal moment for me that your family was there for when I lost my Air Force scholarship. My whole life, since I was like 4 years old, I wanted to fly jets. Like, I remember the first time I watched Top Gun. As corny as it sounds, I remember the first time I watched it, and I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. And in middle school, like in the 7th and 8th grade, the summer in between high school, 8th and 9th grade. I was staying at my grandmama's house, and we didn't have cable. We didn't have anything. Like, didn't have air conditioning. When my mom finally got us an apartment, we didn't have AC at the house. So I used to get my sisters, and we would walk from, like, what street was that? Like 15th and Jackson all the way to the library. So that's like 2-3 miles, probably 3 miles, because that's the library's on the other side of the high school. It's the other side of North Chicago. And I would go there and just like, since I knew I wanted to be a pilot from a young age, I found out you had to be an officer to be a pilot. Then I found out you had to go to college to be an officer. And I was like, okay, what's the best way to be a pilot, to get a pilot slot? The academy, Naval Air Force Academy. Cool. So I would go to the library. Before I even started high school, I got the academy college catalogs and looked up everything that they said you needed to take to be ready for these classes. And I just planned my whole high school career for that. All right. And so, and my whole life was really built around that. So when it fell apart, and not because of something that I did, but was family issues, things my parents didn't do for me that they were supposed to do, whatever, when that dream was just taken away from me. And then I got depressed, and I just like wallowed in that for like a few years. And by the time I got out of it, it was too late. Too late in the sense that I had already invested all of my energy into a new dream. And I can tell you now, 35 years old, there's not a time that I don't see somebody in uniform that I don't have regret. Like, I've been to the Olympics and been all over the world and everything that you've seen in my life, but I still have regret. And that regret drives me to like just keep moving forward, to never let something negative have me frozen without a path to take. So, because one thing I learned in that situation, especially retrospectively, was no matter what happens, there's always something you can do to improve the situation. Always. Like, even if it's just your attitude towards it, you know, having an open mind and being positive allows you to see other avenues that could potentially get you out of the situation that you're in and maybe put you where you want to be. And so by having that major blow, I think kind of pushed me towards everything that you see now.
Yeah, so I'd forgotten until right now. I remember you said that you wanted to be a pilot. I had totally forgotten that was your dream, because you've just been Tyrone, Olympic athlete, for as long as I can remember. When was Olympics? When did that first come into your mind?
So maybe if I start from the beginning, from like some of your questions, it might help. I'll build into it.
Yeah, my first question, because I met you junior year high school. You were on the football team. I knew you as an athlete. Before that, you were a skateboarder. People made fun of you because you were a skateboarder from the hood. That's not a common thing.
Before Lil Wayne made it cool. You know, it's, just as a digression, Keith and Kevin Turner still hit me up because, you know, they work at our high school.
Yeah, I see them all the time online.
They hit me up. Somebody just, I think it was Keith who hit me up. Maybe it was Kevin. I can't remember. A month ago, because one of the students had posted some kind of like threat, you know what I'm saying? Because he'd been bullied, and said he was going to come in and shoot up the school or whatever. And so I think it was Kevin. He was talking to his class, and he was like, "You guys don't realize like what people go through." And he called me as an example, and he was like, "Would you speak to my class about kind of like bullying?" And that's what I was like, man, I was a skateboarder. I had a chain wallet. You know what I mean? I listened to rap too, but that wasn't good enough. You know what I mean? For where we were from, it wasn't good enough. And so it was only through the grace of a few people who were genuine from day one. I mentioned you. I mentioned Keith and Kevin, Orlando. Like, even Orlando would roast me, but he was never like malicious. You know what I mean? Keith and Kevin would look out for me. They would bring me clothes when I didn't have clothes, so I wouldn't get roasted all the time. You gave me some shoes. I remember those like Method Man boots you gave me back in high school. Like, and just talking about how it takes like genuine people to help and just to look past the superficialness. But it's just funny you talk about the skateboarding thing, because yeah, I had a whole conversation with him about that.
That's hilarious. Yeah, looking back sometimes, I tried to be a good friend at the time, but looking back, I'm like, man, I was much less aware of your situation than I should have been. I think talk about regret. Everybody looks back, and it's easy to look back and see you could have done things differently. But looking back, I'm like, man, I didn't ask about his situation at home. I wasn't as aware as I could have been, as I should have been, but I'm glad you at least have some fond memories though. So maybe I didn't blow it too badly.
No, man, ultimately you're my best friend. Like, and you know how it is when you're a young kid, you don't want somebody like all up in your business or all up on you. So like, you choose to share what you choose to share. Right. And really what you just want to do is feel normal. You just want to feel normal. And so that's what your family, you and your brothers and the Turner boys, I guess what y'all gave me. Y'all gave me brothers when I didn't have any. father figures when I didn't have any, like your dads and the coaches on the teams and stuff. But yeah, when you came, I was on the track team, I was on the football team, I was in the band. You know, we was what was her name, Miss Strouch. We was giving her a hard time.
Marching bands. Yeah, the band was great.
So when I was in Bermuda, when I was 4 years old, I ran a race because everybody in the Caribbean runs on the teams or whatever. They run like the school races. And I remember running this race when I was a little kid. I still remember running past little kids and tripping them on the way. Like I run past somebody, I trip them. And until I left for college, my mom still had that blue ribbon from that race. You know what I mean? And I still remember that day. I think it's gone now because she got evicted too many times, you know, so stuff is gone. But when I got to North Carolina, which is, well, first I moved to Chicago and then we moved to North Carolina. My dad was in the Marines. I got to North Carolina and 4th and 5th grade, Hershey's Chocolate Company, they have a youth track program, Hershey's Youth Track Meet, where you start at like the local level and you can advance all the way to nationals. And you just show up, you paid $10 or something like that, and you can do whatever you wanted to. And my friend from the neighborhood, her dad was like an avid runner, and I was walking by their house one day and I saw him like coaching her, and I was like, what are you guys doing? And he explained it to me. He's like, you want to come? I was like, yeah. So I go to that with them. I did the standing long jump and like the 100-meter sprint and like the 200 or something like that. And I was really good at the standing long jump. I made it all the way to state and finished like 6th or 7th in the state of North Carolina back in the day. And so I was like, man, I love jumping. This is fun. My dad gets out of the Marines after 6th grade. We moved to Chicago. There's no youth track programs. You know, there's no Boy Scouts. I had to get out of the Boy Scouts because I couldn't find a troop, all that stuff. So I get to North Chicago High School finally. And I'm like, yeah, I'm joining the football team. I want to play football. And of course I'm going to run track. I've been waiting to get back on a track team since way back when. And, but you remember how skinny I was when I got to high school. I wasn't even 6 foot tall. I was 5'1", and I was under 100 pounds when I got to high school. Under 100 pounds.
You a scrawny dude. When did the nickname Sticks come about? Was that high school or was that after?
That was college. It was a funny story. Okay. I'll tell you that one too.
Oh yeah, I'll keep going with your flow.
And so track season comes around after football season. You know, I was on the freshman team. I wanted to be a running back because Emmitt Smith was my favorite player, but I'm under 100 pounds, right? And Keith and Kevin were like, you need to play receiver. And I was like, no, I'm a running back. But track season comes around, and because I'm this scrawny kid, they throw me in the 800. And I was like, but I want to jump. But there were always superstar athletes who were on the basketball team or who were the star football players who got to be the jumpers. And when you went to like state and conference and sectionals, all that stuff, you only got 2 athletes in each event. And so they had the superstars to put in the jumps. And so I was the 800 guy. It was terrible. I mean, I was terrible. So it was a point. I was just on the team to stay in shape for football. I wasn't pursuing track at all. I asked the track coaches every year to let me long jump, every single year. My senior year of high school, Coach Trent Robinson, who was the girls track coach and the girls volleyball coach, he was, this is before the season, we're doing the fall, like the preseason training. He was teaching some of his girls how to triple jump. And I walked up to him, I was like, hey, Coach Trent, how you doing? What's this event? Because I didn't know what it was. I'd never seen it. He's like, oh, it's a triple jump. I was like, oh, can I learn with you guys? Because nobody on the boys team was triple jumping because nobody knew what the heck it was. Like we had the long jumpers, but didn't have the triple jumpers. So he was like, absolutely. So he taught me how to triple jump and, or he tried to coach me into it, you know. And again, this was my senior year. And I think at that time when the season finished, I was 1 inch away from going to state in the triple jump after having just tried it. And because I started doing okay in the triple jump, they finally let me long jump like twice in high school, but I wasn't that good. Maybe 3 times. I wasn't that good, so the superstar guys were still doing the long jump, but nobody wanted to do the triple. So I got all conference, I got all county and all that stuff, almost made it to state. Like somebody snuck me for that last position on his last jump. I was so hot. I got best senior jumper. Like the track coach made up an award to give to me because like, basically he'd seen how much I had like poured my heart into it. And I was like, man, this is fun. On the other side of the coin, I'd already had a scholarship to go to college. I already had the Air Force ROTC scholarship. So I didn't need sports to like pay for my education or whatever, at least at that time. So I was like, well, I'm going to go to a school where that has Air Force ROTC, where I could walk on to the track team just to have fun, because I've only been doing this triple jump thing for like a year. I want to try it out some more, have some fun with it. I don't need to worry about scholarship. So went to that Division II school, University of Missouri-Rolla, which ended up being the craziest story. Ended up being the only place I got in, because North Chicago Community High School counselors forgot to send my transcripts into U of I, and didn't send my transcripts in on time to Case Western, which I had been talking to their coaches for months, and they were like, you're in, everything's got to be good. We already talked to the admissions council, you're good. And then North Chicago Community High School counselors didn't send my stuff in time for the early decision, and that's what took me out of the running for those schools. So,
Joe, I hope Keith and Kevin have made a difference there, because that school, I remember I took the AP. I don't know if you took it with me. I know Keith and Kevin. I remember Keith and Kevin being there when I took AP Calculus, and I passed the thing. Did you take it?
No, that was my worst class.
Man, I took it and I passed that dang test, and I don't know what happened. They lost it. Something happened. I got a 4 on the AP Calculus, and I didn't get no college credit for it, so I had to retake it. I can't remember what clerical error happened. I was so frustrated.
No, I wasn't in AP Calc because math was like my worst. I mean, I got to pre-AP, got my C, and got out of there.
It's funny that you were so good at science, but not math.
I was great. Like I was in physics. We were in the physics course. I did great. I got A's in physics. So I couldn't, like, it was when it became abstract and not like concrete is when I just couldn't connect the dots. So I have my scholarship set up. I'm getting decline letters from college. I'm like, I'm not even gonna get into school. And then I get this big packet from University of Missouri-Rolla. And I was like, I guess this is where I'm going, right? So I get there, walk onto the football team. I couldn't make it down for fall camp or for the summer camp for football. Your mom was going to take me, but then something happened and she couldn't bring me down. So I had to wait for my dad to be able to take me. So I couldn't go for whatever the whole camp. So first day of football practice, I'm in like shorts and pants, or pants and a t-shirt, because you can't put on pads yet. So first day of pads was like a week or two into it, practice. I come out in pads. All the good pads were taken. I got these giant pads on that are for like a lineman or something like that. I walk out to practice, and I think his name was Devin something. He sees me, he turns around, he's like, yo, look at those sticks. And that was my nickname from college from that day forward.
It's over, sticks.
So I walk onto the team. I walk onto the track team as a triple jumper. Not a great triple jumper by collegiate standards, but I'm doing okay. I'm doing my thing. And I'm at a meet one day, and I'm watching the long jump, and I see some kid jump 20 foot something, and he made the finals, which is terrible for a male long jumper, but that's where we were. And I looked at the coach. I was like, Coach, man, I can jump that far. I did that in high school because my best was like 21 feet, which is, again, wasn't great. Wasn't great at all. I mean, there are college women who can jump further than that for sure, like not even like the top college women. So I was like, but I could do that. And he's like, well, maybe we could throw you in the long jump a couple of times. So he threw me in the long jump a couple of times, and I improved over my high school personal best by like a foot. Still not a great long jumper, like not even 22 feet yet. But I have been lobbying coach after coach. I want a long jump, man. I remember when I was a kid and I did the standing long jump, and I was so good at it. And I broke into the triple jump. I was doing okay. You know, I went to the conference meet. I think I got all conference my freshman year in college as a triple jumper. Like, I was like, I want a long jump. Never really quite took off. But my sophomore year, what happened was we got a new set of coaches in, whole new set of head coach and an assistant coach, Coach Sterling and Coach Brian Scheiding. And Coach Scheiding was the sprints and jumps coach. And he had a one-on-one meeting with every athlete, you know, kind of like you do. You get a leadership position. He came in and had a meeting with everyone. And so I had my one-on-one with him. I sat down. I was like, hey, Coach, my name's Tyrone. I'm your long jumper and triple jumper. And he said, okay. So I just went in there. I was like, I'm a long jumper, triple jumper. And he said, okay.
All right.
And he was the first coach in track, at least, who went to practice with me without prejudging what kind of athlete I was based off of how I looked, and just decided to just work with me. You know, it was a small school, a small program. He didn't have a whole bunch of jumpers. He didn't have a whole bunch of stud athletes. It wasn't like he was going to have any Olympians coming out of there, right? So he just decided to coach me.
He didn't know.
4 or 5 years older than me. So we were really close in age, and we just got to work. He kicked me off the team, though, my freshman year because I was late to practice too many times, right? He threw that. He's like, look, if you really want to be here, come back in a week and never be late again. I was like, wow. He kicked me off the team, made me think about how bad I wanted it. I came back in a week. We got back to work. First 2 track meets of the year, I fouled every jump, meaning I stepped over the line on every jump. Couldn't get on the board. First time I got on the board, University of Kansas, indoor track meet. First meet, I get on the board. I won the meet. I went like 23 feet and some change, which was a personal best by over a foot at that time, year over year. And Coach Scheiding, Coach B, he's been my coach since then. Like, he's written my workouts since I was 19 years old. I'm 35 now. He was a groomsman in the wedding. You know, and that's how I got to be a long jumper. Obviously, there's a lot more story after that, but that's how I finally got to be a long jumper.
I was surprised first time you sent me a picture or you won an award or something. I was like, long jump. He was always a triple jumper. Where's this coming from?
Yeah.
Hey, rewinding, you said he didn't judge you for what you looked like. Is there a certain look that a jumper's supposed to have? I mean, what did you not have that a long jumper?
I mean, I was still really scrawny, right? I
Okay.
think when he got me as an athlete, I was just under 6 feet. And, man, I might have been 135 pounds, maybe 140 pounds. And as a contrast right now, I'm like 165 and I'm 6 even. So, I mean, I gained an inch in like 25 pounds. So, you know, he just decided, okay, well, this is what I have. And I'm going to just work with this kid. And it was that was the pivotal moment in my life, because I didn't know that a year and a half later, I'd lose my Air Force scholarship. I didn't know everything that was on the horizon. I was just really happy to have a coach who would coach me in track. I had some really good people in my life in football who tried to lobby for me, who said I should have been a starter because they could see my athletic ability trying to shine through. I just didn't get an opportunity. But in track, it was more not having the coach, because there were no jump coaches at North Chicago, and then already having those superstar, you know, athletes. So,
I mean, there's no way he could have known, hey, this Olympian just walked into my office. This dude's a future Olympian.
I mean, Coach B took me from 20, let's just call it 22 feet. My personal best now is 27 and a half feet. And he was writing my workouts for all but 2 of the years that I've been long jumping. When I first got to Houston, I transitioned to a different coach to write my workouts, but yeah.
Crazy. 27 is so far from me. I always picture in terms of basketball hoops. You lay down a basketball hoop, you're having to jump over practically 3 hoops stacked each other, and you do that. That's crazy. I really have never measured myself. I don't think I could make it 12 feet.
Nah, man, you play basketball. You could, I would give you, well, shoot, we're old now, so I say I can give you 20 feet. I can give you 20 feet with a little bit of practice, with a little bit of training.
I'm like 6 months older than you.
I know, we're old. The only reason why I'm able to still keep doing this is because I never stopped. That's the thing. Like, I never stopped training.
How old are Olympians? Like, when are you done? Are you one of the oldest dudes out there or what?
In the long jump, I am the second oldest active elite long jumper. And as of right now, I might be the oldest. The whole season's like, you know, basically canceled. So I don't know if the dude who was older than me is still, you know, going to do it another year. But as of right now, I mean, when I made so in 2017, for pretty much the whole year, in terms of distances jumped, I was like number 3 or number 2 in the world. And there wasn't even anybody else in the 80s who was like in the top 10, you know, born in the 80s. So,
yeah. Dang.
Yeah.
So this is it. I mean, there won't be another Olympics for you.
I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to push through to Tokyo, which would be a year from now. It's going to be difficult, but I just did so much work getting ready. And really the idea of being at the Olympics with my wife, having those memories, those pictures to share for the rest of our lives. And I mean, we were in Rio together, but we weren't like together. We weren't married. We were just like falling in love. And now we would have, you know, it would just be special. And so I got my Libra scale and I'm weighing all that versus against, you know, what I've got to sacrifice for possible future career things that I already signed up for next year for school because I thought I'd have a clean plate.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to consider. But so after that year, that was 2004, 2003, 2004. Yeah, 2004 when coach started training with me, got me to that first meet that I won. That year, I went to NCAA National Indoor and Outdoor and stunk it up, did terribly, but made it to the NCAA National meet, you know what I mean, in my first full year of long jumping. Like, couldn't have predicted it, right? The following year, I had some injuries, and I decided to pledge Kappa Alpha Psi, which is a traditionally Black fraternity. It's a very intense process. So a little bit injury, staying up late nights, doing stuff to make it into this organization. Didn't have a great season. Qualified for nationals, but it was windy. I jumped in Kansas and finally made my qualifying mark, but they measured the wind, and the wind was too strong over the legal allowable limit to qualify for a national meet. So I jumped the distance, but it was too much wind, as it always is in Kansas. I had spent the whole year trying to get back healthy after being injured. Finally get injured. Last chance meet in Kansas. Finally do it. The wind was like 0.1 meters per second too fast or too strong, and I didn't go. So,
Dang.
But I basically sacrificed my whole third year of track due to injury and pledging my fraternity. But the next year, my fourth year, 2006, that was the year where I was like, oh, what do we have here? You know? But in 2004, when I jumped like 24 feet, 24 and a half, and I remember coming to practice one day and telling my teammates, I was like, yo, I'm going to the Olympics. And people were like laughing because they thought I was joking. But I was dead serious. I was like, no, I'm going to the Olympics. I'm going to the Olympics.
This is senior year of college.
No. This is that first year I had my first full year long jumping when I ended up finishing that season 24 and a half feet is my personal best. Started that year as a 22-foot long jumper. So, you know, it's a huge jump, right? And so I'm like, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to the Olympics. And I remember my teammate, Jesse, he tells this story all the time. He's like, I remember when you came and said you're going to the Olympics, man, I thought you were crazy. But I put it in my head at that moment because at that same time, that's when my whole Air Force thing started to fall apart. And it looked like my dream was dead and I needed another dream. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get to field training this summer because my mom didn't work out the citizenship thing for me. And everything was just like falling apart. You know, and that's the summer I stayed with your parents too. Before the end of that summer, I injured myself at the conference track meet. And I was bouncing, man. I was bouncing in my warm-ups and then I injured myself. And then I was at your parents' house and watching the Olympics on TV, like just burning desire inside to be there. Watch who would end up being my good friend, Dwight Phillips, win the gold medal in the long jump. And he's like my idol. I'm like, I'm going to be like Dwight. So then 2 years later, 2006, indoor track season starts at University of Missouri. Had a personal best at the first meet of the year and had consecutive personal bests every week up until NCAA Nationals, every single week. And by the end of that year, I had improved my personal best 1.5 feet, from 24 and a half feet to 26 feet. And that's when you get to 26 feet, that's when you really have a chance, as long as it wasn't a fluke, to take it further. In the US, we say 26 feet. In Europe, we say 8 meters. 8 meters is like 26.3. It's crazy how many people get stuck in those 3 inches and don't make it to 8 meters. But like, I jumped 792. And then that was my first time competing for Bermuda that summer. I did like the under 23 meet. I got a bronze medal there. It was in Dominican Republic. It's my first time leaving the country since I was in the 4th grade or something like that. Jumped 791, broke the Bermuda national record on my very first jump, and just kept going, man.
So you're 2 years into college. That was the first time you had that thought, I can be one of the greatest athletes in the entire world.
I don't know if it was a thought, a dream, a hope, a wish, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I'm going to go to the Olympics. I didn't even know what it took. I didn't know what the qualifying mark was. Like, I just said, that's what I'm going to do. And I thought I was going to be doing for America, you know. But, I mean, you know a little bit of my story. So I was born in Bermuda.
Yeah, in case we publish this interview in the future, tell the story. Like, you're an American. How are you jumping for Bermuda?
So born in Bermuda. My mom's Bermudian, my whole family there is, and, you know, a little bit of a sensitive subject, but my mother was sexually assaulted by a U.S. service member, and that's how I came to be. So obviously not on the birth certificate, not any kind of links to it. You know what I mean? She was dating one service member. She was assaulted by his best friend. They were both kicked out of the Marines. Both were sent back. Well, at least one of them was kicked out of the Marines, sent back to the States. She went my whole life thinking that her boyfriend was my father, knowing that she had been assaulted by this other person. They did the blood typing back then. It was like 80% that he was, but it wasn't enough to get child support or anything like that. So he left the island and that was it. All this unfolded when I was with your parents too. It was like a really critical time. So in that 2004 summer, this guy who my mom thought was my dad, 20 plus years down the line, goes on vacation, goes to Bermuda, has a moment of conscience and says, let me reach out to this. I was a young kid. I was dumb. I have a son. He's like 20 something. I want to like reach out. I want to, he grew up and decided he wanted to try to do the right thing. He did a radio shout out in Bermuda. Some of my family heard about it, got back to me. I'm staying with your parents, and all of a sudden I'm talking on the phone to this guy who's my dad, who like, like this whole Lifetime movie moment, So I tell him what's going on. I'm like, it's crazy time. I'm just about to lose my scholarship. I'm supposed to be in field training. It's the citizenship thing. I got to get, and he's like, no problem. Whatever I can do. Let's do the DNA test. Let's get this taken care of. Let's get the lawyer squared away. It's going to be gravy. We do everything. Test comes back. Not my dad. My whole life I've been told I'm named after this dude. My middle name is his first name. And find this out. I'm like crushed, right? I'm crushed. This is really what kind of stopped me from continuing to take positive steps towards being a pilot, because like everything that I knew was just like falling apart. And he said, I think you just got to talk to your mom, because there's more to the story that I can't tell you. So, and I called my uncle because I was so angry with him. I was like, you've been telling me this my whole life. Like, you're the one person who's always kept it real. What's going on? And he was like, I can't, you got to talk to your mom. So I call my mom and she tells me what happened, the whole story of how she was assaulted. And she said, my whole life I went hoping, wishing that this wasn't the case. And didn't know where this dude was. He had fallen off the face of the earth like nobody. So that was it. That's how I lost. I didn't have a hope and a dream in order to get my citizenship in time to keep my ROTC scholarship. And it was just like such a terrible moment. But in that moment, I didn't know if I was going to be able to go back to school, because I didn't know if I had enough money to make it back. Your parents co-signed on a loan for me to go back to school. It's like $5,000 or $6,000, which saved my education. And then my coach, Brian, that was the year I went from like 22 feet to 24 and a half feet and made it to nationals and, won the conference meet and all that kind of stuff. And he cursed out the athletic director to get me an athletic scholarship, because to that point I was on nothing. So between your parents and Coach Brian, I was able to go back to school, and I just did everything that Brian told me to do. Every lift, every dietary requirement, every single thing he told me to do, I did. And all the passion that I had built up for, up to that point, 20 plus years of my life into being a pilot, I just poured it into the track. And unfortunately, I didn't focus on the positive things that I could have done to potentially still be a pilot. But this is how it all played out. Yeah.
So your biological father is American?
He is. So he was a Marine as well. I mean, I know his name now. I'm still getting new information to this day. A couple months ago, I found out I have like 14 siblings.
Oh, dang.
Half siblings or whatever. And it's just like a weird thing where there's this person out there that is my dad, doesn't know about me. Knows he committed a crime way back when and then got away with it, but probably doesn't know that I'm assuming he assumed, just like everyone else, that I was his best friend's kid or closest friend. I don't know if they were like best friends, but so the guy who we thought was my dad, his name is Mark, has kept in contact with me, like a good dude. He obviously, when he became a man, like really changed who he was as a person, and he's kept in contact with me. He follows up. He wishes me happy birthday. He wants to come to a track meet. Like, he's like a good dude. He's been like Inspector Gadget, has tracked this dude down and kept tabs on him for like a decade for me. In case of the time comes that I want to reach out, he has kept tabs on this person for me. So
yeah, man, kudos to this dude. Everything you told me about him, he seems like a great guy. Like maybe as a youth didn't make some best decisions, but sounds like a really positive dude right now.
Man, he's been, it's one of those things where we might go a really long time without speaking to each other, just because of life. But whenever we do, it's like two boys just catching up and talking about everything. And he remembers all the stories I told him from day one, and I remember all the stories he's told me. And so he's been a really good person to have, and especially because he's continued to like go down this rabbit hole of this person, this terrible person who continued to be a terrible person after he did what he did to my mother. So, yeah.
So your mom's Bermudan. I guess I missed that. I didn't even realize that. I always thought your dad was Bermudan. So your mom was Bermudan.
Yep. And then my stepdad, who I call my dad because he came around when I was like 4. He married my mother. They have my sisters. He's a Marine as well. That's how I got to America. So
okay, I got you.
So it was kind of like another service member. My mom, 4 whatever plus years later, falls in love with another Marine. He puts the ring on it, and yeah.
Okay, yeah. See, this is why I say, dang, I should have been more aware as a friend in high school. But like you said, I guess you don't really have these intense conversations as a teenager.
Yeah. And plus, like when we were in high school, like my stepdad, or my dad, I'll just call him my dad, he was not a great human being at that time either. So, he had some flaws and messed around with my mom and left us hanging, no money, no car, no nothing. Like he did some things too. So at that time, like when we were kicking it all the time, like he wasn't around. Like he was in the city in Chicago, and yeah.
Yeah, tell me if my memory's wrong, but I remember going to your house a few times. I remember you going from school, going home, cooking dinner for your little sisters, no one being home. I don't think I ever met your mom or your dad. In my mind, I pictured that your mom was around, but I don't remember your dad being around. Is that accurate?
Yeah. He came around a couple times during high school, mostly when he ran out of money, but he was out doing his own thing, usually in somewhere in Chicago. He worked for FedEx. I don't know when he started working for FedEx, but he's been with them now for a long time. But yeah, he wasn't around really. I'm trying to remember when they officially got divorced. I was in high school, but he had already not been around for a long time. So
okay, yeah. Sometimes I wonder, you can make your own memories in your head. Sometimes I wonder if those memories are accurate. Hey, you shared a lot of personal stuff, but in my mind, more than ever, I do want to write your biography now, man. Your story, this is an amazing story.
Man, it's crazy to me how, sometimes it feels like I've done everything by myself. But, when I sit and think about like the people that were there at critical times, that just without them, like I wouldn't have even had an option, to take another step forward. That's what blows my mind. Because like when you're in it, when things are going so bad, it feels like you're doing it by yourself. It always does.
Yep.
And I think about, like I said, your parents co-signing the student loan for me. My landlord's name is Dan. He gave me a job in like 7th grade, and I would always work for him on the weekends. And he'd always like say, "Hey, you hungry?" Like, "Oh, let's go to the crib right quick. I'll make you a burger. Like, let's have some burgers and just watch TV." And now I realize what he was doing. Like he knew that I didn't have anything at the house. He knew I hadn't eaten anything all day, so like Dan and your parents and you, hooking me up and not judging. And it's great when you sit back and think about all the different people that came in, and even if it was a short period of time, that helped me build this life, Well,
that's generous of you, because most of the time when I think of your life, I think, yep, people say no one's self-made. Tyrone self-made. Had no help. This man did it by himself. You were there for me too. I showed up to high school. I was a scared little 16-year-old boy. I got beat up my very first day at school. I was like, dang, I'm not gonna fit in here. I'm scared. And I don't know if it was day 1, day 2. You saw me in the hall. "What's up, man?" And we walked to band together. And day 1, you were just the most sincere, genuine, cool person. So without you, I don't know if I'd have had a positive high school experience.
Man, those are good years, man. Like when you got to North Chicago, that's when I was like, those are the 2 good years of high school. You feel me? Yeah. I mean, I had Keith and Kevin, Orlando, but like no one that I really hung out with socially, with the exception of a few people like the weirdos like me, the nerds and Johnny Johnson, and, like the outcasts or whatever. But like you, in a weird way, you gave me credibility.
That is weird.
So I'm looking at these questions. You asked me about graduation. I think I got most likely to succeed or something like that in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, most likely to succeed.
remember it was a science award too. You didn't get some science award?
Man, when I was in middle school, I won
You
a science
accepted some
fair.
certificate at the pulpit. I got a picture of some white lady handing you a certificate for science.
I don't know. I mean, I got to speak at graduation.
Yeah, that's what I remember. And then she came up afterwards and handed you, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was you, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't remember. I mean, I was heavily into physics in high school, but I know I got voted most likely to succeed. I don't remember if I got anything else at graduation though.
Okay.
I just remember my mama was late to graduation and I was upset heavily.
I remember that too. Yeah, I remember that too. But
she's like, I did your sister's hair. I'm like,
she came, kudos. Credit for her. She showed up. Yeah, some of these other questions we didn't talk about. So that's related. One of my questions was, did you have support from family members with your athletic endeavors? Was your mama aware, your stepfather or your dad? Anybody support you?
Here's the craziest thing. So my dad, he saw me do the standing long jump back in the day in North Carolina. So he was there when I went to like the regional or the county level or whatever. So he saw that. But other than standing long jump when I was in the 4th or 5th grade, whatever, my mom and dad have never, ever, ever seen me long jump in person, ever. Not high school, not college, not professional Olympics, whatever, like never, ever. My uncle out of Bermuda, who's the one I mentioned, always kept it real with me. He's seen me because I went to Bermuda to compete and stuff. And obviously he was there to watch. But yeah, my parents have never seen it in person.
Dang. Rewinding a little bit, when you first said you were going to go to the Olympics, did you always believe that? Did you ever doubt it? Or once you said it, you're like, yep, that's it?
It's hard for me to remember. I remember a similar story where this other guy who was on the football team, when I started jumping really well and I was getting close to qualifying for NCAA Nationals for Division II, and I went up to him and I was like, man, I'm so close to qualifying for Nationals. And at that time, I think I was like 4 or 5 inches, which is kind of a distance in the long jump. And he was like, oh, man, that's a long way. I don't know if you can do that. And I was like, what? That sticks with me to this day when he doubted me. And I just was like, oh, no, I got to do this. I got to do this. So when it became a realistic dream is probably in 2006. And this is such a short amount of time. If you think about it, from my first full season actually long jumping to walking in the opening ceremonies at the Olympic Games was only 4 years. So all this changed in one Olympic cycle, which doesn't normally happen. People usually have this dream from very young ages and whatever. So when it became a realistic dream, I would say it was 2006 when, in February of that year was indoor track season. We were at conference and I had like 4 events to run. So my coach said, look, you get 1 jump. And then we're resting you because I had to do the triple jump and the 60 meter and the 200. I was like, 1 jump? He's like, you get 1 jump, so you better not foul. So I come down there and I hit this 1 jump, which was 25.5 feet, which was like a 3-inch PR at the time. And that indoor long jump stood as my indoor personal best for like a decade. Like, so that was, when I hit that jump, that's when I was like, oh man, like that's a big jump. And that's when my uncle said something to the Bermuda newspaper, and then the Bermuda track and field people reached out to me and were like, hey, you're qualified to be on our national team and this, that, and the other. So yeah.
Bermuda must love you.
Man, it's been so great for me because when I was younger, I wasn't good enough to make a U.S. team in the Olympics. Like in 2008, my first games. Later on in my career, definitely I had the ability to do that, but back then I didn't. And competing for Bermuda allowed me to develop in my own time. And ultimately, I was talking about this with Sandy, ultimately, that's the only country I'm technically eligible to compete for because of all the other stuff with the citizenship and everything. So it's not like I just took Bermuda because it was easier for me. Like, that's my country. Like, that's who I'm eligible to compete for. No other choice. So, and they have supported me every step of the way. And as of right now, I'm tied for the most Olympic appearances for Bermuda. Like, and
of any Olympian or just jumpers?
Of any sport, any Olympics.
Oh, really?
The
so you do one more, you win. You do one more, you win.
So the other person I'm tied with is active right now.
Okay.
She's a little bit younger than me. She does a triathlon. And so, I probably, if I don't do Tokyo, I for sure she'll be the all-time most. even if I do Tokyo, she's young enough to where she could do a fifth Olympics potentially. Who knows? So,
I got you.
But still, as of right now, you know, and when I did it in Rio, yeah.
So that was my last question. What would you say are your top three? I said 3, 4, 5. What are your top accomplishments, and then your farthest jump?
I think what is in my heart is like one of the greatest moments of my life is when I made the Olympic final in London. So the way it works is you have a pool of athletes that qualify for the Olympics. In the long jump, it's like 30 or 40 guys. Everybody goes in and gets 3 jumps to make it into the top 12. Those top 12 go to the finals and compete the next day. So those are the people you usually see on TV. You don't normally see the qualifying rounds on TV. Just like in the sprints, you have like the prelims, the semifinals, or whatever. So in 2012, I was injured the whole season. I was unfortunately unable to train at University of Houston because this was after the whole Sandusky thing. So all the institutions were like, we're kicking everybody out. We don't want no problems. So I'm injured. I couldn't jump in practice the whole year. It was a terrible year for it to be an Olympic year. And I hit my season best on my 3rd jump in the qualifying round and put me into 10th place and made it to the Olympic final. Was one of the best moments of my life, you know, because it wasn't my personal best in distance, but it was my season best. I did it when it mattered. I was hurt, and I made it to the final. So that was a huge story of achievement for me because it was just such a trying year. Like every bit of adversity that I'd ever faced in my life kind of prepared me for that year, I think. So that, in terms of athletically, you know, I was 3-time All-American in undergrad, and that was huge for me from someone who was a walk-on, who was riding the bench in high school sports. So many good memories, man. There's so many good memories from the sport. I think that the other would be, so in 2010, I won the Central American and Caribbean Games. So you have the Olympic Games, you got like the Pan American Games, Commonwealth Games, and then there's a few smaller games still. Central America and Caribbean Games is one that's actually doesn't exist anymore. They just finished it like a couple of years ago. And all the greatest long jumpers from this part of the world who aren't American have won that meet. So guys like Ivan Pedroso, who's Cuban, who's fouled over 9 meters, 30 feet, like one of the greatest long jumpers of all time. Irvin Saladino, Beijing Olympic champion, James Beckford, Jamaica, like all the greatest guys that I learned about after the fact have won that meet. And in 2010, I won it, broke the Bermuda national record again, jumped 8 meters, 22, which is, depending on which conversion book you look at, it's either 26 feet, 11 3/4 of an inch, or it's 27 feet. So of course, to me, it was 27 feet. And it was on the last jump. And I didn't just win that meet. I won by like a foot and some change. Like I demolished the field, and it was a great feeling. And that's it as my personal best all the way until 2017. So it took me 7 more years to jump further than that. And then the other one would be that my personal best is 27 feet. I got to convert it into feet because it's 8 meters, 34. Let's see. It's probably going to do the decimal. Let me do the USA track and field conversion.
That's a dang long jump, man. You really do look like you are flying when you're jumping. And halfway through, it doesn't look like you're going to make it. Like I watch your videos, I'm like, there's no way. But then your stretch and the way you move, I mean, technique has got to be more than half the equation. I don't know.
Oh, it's so much of it. 27 feet, 4.5 inches is my personal best in feet, or 8 meters, 34. The rest of the world uses meters, so that's how I'm wired now. That was achieved in 2017 at the ripe old age of like 32. It's when it was the first outdoor season where Sandy and I were officially a couple, and she was opening up her season in Doha in Qatar, and I was opening up mine in Houston. And I knew that she was about to like snap off in Qatar. And I was like, I'm dating this girl. She's, silver medalist in the Olympics. Like, I can't be no scrub. People gonna be roasting her. Like, why you dating that dude? Like all these thoughts are running through my head. Like, I can't be a buster. I was like, I got to go out here and show out. And I was thinking about all of that. I can't explain to you. It was all going through my head. And I went out there, showed out, and had a personal best by 12 centimeters after not having a personal best in 7 years.
She was a motivation. So she's a current silver medalist?
Yep.
Yeah.
Current silver medalist from the Rio Games, world indoor champion from 2018, world outdoor silver medalist from just this past year, and number 3 all time in the history of the event in terms of personal best, like how high she's actually pole vaulted.
Number 3 all time.
Yeah.
And
she took 6 shots at the world record this indoor season. So, I mean, if she gets a chance to have an outdoor season this year, I think there's a really good chance she actually breaks a world record. It's crazy.
Dang, Joe, I should have been following closer. I didn't realize that's amazing. You still hold the Bermuda the Bermuda record for long jump?
Yep. Yeah, that 834 is the Bermuda record. And I have the indoor record too, but I don't really do indoor so much. And so that one will probably get broken in the near future. The 834, that one's got a little bit more staying power. I mean, I hope it gets broken one day. I'd love to see somebody like take the mantle, but I'd like to have it for at least a few more years.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in the Olympics, your highest was what? You were 7th place, I think, in what year?
Oh, so my highest finish actually. So technically London, when I made it to the final, I didn't do very well once I got to the final. And so I finished in 12th place. So that's my highest actual finish. So sometimes when you see the results, it'll say a number and then a Q, which means that's what I was in my qualifying round. And there's 2 qualifying rounds. So I might've been 7th in that qualifying round, but 10th overall kind of thing. And then you go to the finals and you actually have a shakeout. And that's
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. So it's inaccurate if I write down 7th place in the Olympics.
Yeah, you have to put 12th, unfortunately. 12 is my highest finish. Should have been better. I mean, that final though, where I finished 12th, my 3rd round jump was a foul, which is kind of the story of my career. Like I fouled the jump. I stepped over the line by about a centimeter. And I have it on film. This is verifiable. You can see it. It was a gold medal jump. It was into the gold medal position. I would have been the Olympic champion, period. But that's life, man.
Dang.
That's the long jump. There's other people who foul big jumps there too, so you never know.
Yeah, but even still, there's 7.8 billion people in the world. To say that in any activity, I don't give a, who cares what activity it is? In any activity, if there's only 11 people out of 7.8 billion that can do it better than you,
it's definitely cool to be able to say that I've been one of the best athletes in the world in, like quantifiably. It's one of those things, how it's different in like football where like, oh, he's a great athlete, but not quantifiably because you're playing a game. But track and field is like, it's black and white. Did you run faster? Did you jump further or higher or whatever? Like, and that's it. So
I love the confidence I have when I go to a basketball court. Even still, I can walk on the court and I can say, I know I will beat everybody here one-on-one. I guarantee I can beat everybody here. That's a great feeling. And so it must be nice to know no matter where you go, you are the greatest jumper in any place that you're at.
It's fun sometimes when you think about it. I think what's fun for me is like when I go lift weights. In Houston, I was lifting in like a 24-hour fitness. And here I've got this little kind of semi-professional gym, which is pretty dope. A lot of strong people in there. But in 24-hour fitness, when I'm doing snatch, I'm throwing 150 pounds above my head, or I'm squatting 450 pounds in like a public gym. People are like, yo, because I'm cut or whatever, but I'm not like a big dude. You'll see like big bodybuilder looking dudes in there that can't squat as much as I can. And that's fun,
Yeah, because you wouldn't guess it looking at your frame, but put me on the weights. I'll wait any time. Hey, you started talking about you don't know what the future is going to bring. What is your long-term goal? I mean, in 10 years, you're not going to be jumping Olympics. So in 10 years, what are you doing?
So, I was just mentioning having worked for Audi. So I worked for Audi for 11 years, and I really love the automotive industry. It's going through a lot of change and disruption right now between autonomous vehicles and subscription programs and all kinds of different ideas that people are having. And so came back to business school so that I could transition into like the corporate life for either the automotive industry, which would be amazing, sports media, entertainment, which is another one of my passions because I actually represent a couple of athletes. So it's kind of a cool thing to do on the side. Or maybe the intersection of those things like motorsport would be great. I have an internship this summer with Sony PlayStation. So gaming is pretty cool to me. So really, I like business development. I like taking people who are interested in something and making them like a fan, making them like an ambassador. Like that's how I was successful in sales. I was someone coming kind of interested in the car, and by the time they were done, like they loved it. They were telling their friends, like it was the best thing they ever purchased. And not because it was gimmicky, because that's how I felt about it. So that's kind of my plan with business, with this MBA. So I'm hoping I can work for a company like Porsche, or Audi at the corporate level, business development, creating fans, stuff like that.
Very cool. So my business, Examine Leadership.
Mhm.
I've gone to a bunch of small businesses in Utah County. When people get promoted, they get promoted because they're good at their job, but they never get any leadership training. Like they're in charge of people and they have no idea how to be in charge of people. They're just in charge of people because they were the best at doing what they were doing.
Right.
Then they have no idea how to manage people. And so I go to these small businesses and teach them basic business principles or basic leadership principles. Anyway, part of this is a podcast too. So I may edit this up and put it on the podcast if you're okay with that too. I'll send it to you when I'm done. But man,
yeah, man. Any way I can help, man. It's funny, being in business school, I'm going through some of these leadership development things, and they talk about that very thing. A lot of the times in the business world, someone gets that job because they've done a great job, but doesn't necessarily mean they're going to know how to get someone else to be effective at doing that job or motivate them. So, yeah.
And the fact that sometimes they're terrible at it. Just because you're good at a function doesn't mean you're good. They're two different things, good at being a leader.
So I was in this course called Leading People in Organizations, and the professor, his favorite example is somebody from his hometown who's like one of the greatest Americans of all time, but who effectively was a terrible leader. It was Neil Armstrong. And he talks about how Neil Armstrong was the best engineer and pilot and the best person to land on the moon and be the first boots on the moon, but a terrible leader who was unable to show emotions and no empathy and couldn't motivate people. He could just get the job done and that was it. So it's one of those situations where you can be the best person, but not the best person to lead.
Exactly. Just recently, my kids play piano. They're piano geniuses, man. My kids are so legit at piano. We hired a national champion pianist. She's done duets and won awards, and she's amazing. She lives locally. Mm-hmm. We hired her to teach the kids. It was painful for me to watch her teaching my children piano. And we fired her within a month. I mean, she was so bad. I was like, let's give her a shot. Let's give her another lesson. Horrible. Then we hired this girl who is known for nothing. She's not famous. She's not polished. I guess lack of polish is the word. She's just not a good performer. But she sits down with my kids, and I've never seen a better piano teacher. And I've had a lot of piano teachers. She can connect with them and help them understand concepts. You've probably seen this as an athlete. There's some great athletes that have no clue how to teach another person how to perform a function.
Yeah. That's interesting, man.
Hey, man, been a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
I know you're busy. I know you got stuff to do. Let me know, legit. I'm going to fly down there whenever you tell me you got 2 days for free and we'll just hang out. You're going to have to show me how to weightlift a little bit.
All right, cool. Yeah, definitely come down. I'm a card carrying liberal, always have been. I know you're card carrying conservative, and I tell people that's one of the greatest things about our friendship is that it don't matter.
Yeah, it's true. But you know what? I think you've had a bigger influence on me than I have on you, though. I'm shifting more left than you are shifting right. Even religiously, man. I ain't even gone to church this whole year.
What?
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Oh, come on. Hold on, man. You can't bring that in at the end of the conversation, man. I never thought I'd hear the day, man. For me, it was always hard when I went and got my degree in history. I started to lose a lot of faith in organized religion just because all of the bad things that have been signed off on by the churches of the world. And it's just so hard to get behind that. And so it's not that I don't have faith in a creator. It's like I don't have faith in the people that's talking to me about it, if that makes sense.
That's where we're at, man. It makes total sense. We still have a family gratitude practice every single day. We pray before our meals. We read the Bible on Sundays together. But that's one thing I always respected about you, man. Growing up, I don't even remember what religion you were, but I remember you being one of the most ethical and straight-minded people that I knew. You had positive choices all the time. You weren't into drugs. You weren't into any gang or anything like those things. Didn't even seem to interest you growing up.
Yeah. I just want to have a good time with my friends in a safe kind of, and it's funny, and you can, I know we're still recording, but it's funny that all of that was really spawned by this just pie in the sky dream of flying jets. I had that goal and I knew that I couldn't mess up and I had to do it a certain way or it was impossible, especially coming from where I was coming from. So, I mean, if I had a guardian angel, he was probably a Vietnam fighter pilot or something,
Yeah, those goals help. Having positive goals help definitely focus your life. Too many people don't have a goal. We did an episode about that. Too many people don't have an objective or a purpose, and so they just end up making stupid decisions. Hey, I took a lot of your time. It's been great to reconnect you.
Absolutely, man. You're not taking my time. First of all, I still tell people my best friend growing up was Kirk Lichty. Like,
on a personal level, you've been one of my greatest friends my whole life.
we got to definitely link up and get back connected. So
Very cool. Very cool. Hey, man, it's been so nice to connect with you. Appreciate you.
I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. Thank you so much, Tyrone. Very inspiring. Some of the things that stood out to me from the interview were his passion and perseverance, or as Angela Duckworth combines the two to say, grit. Tyrone is one of the grittiest people that I know. That long-term vision, having a goal, a purpose, is what drove him from the beginning. Each of us needs to find that. What is your goal? What is your purpose? What is your long-term vision? If you're a leader, what is your vision for your team, for your company? What do you plan to produce? Where do you plan to head in the future? That was one of the main things that stuck out to me. Second for me was his ability to change and adapt. He had a plan, a long-term goal that was driving him to become a pilot. It didn't work out. As he said, through no fault of his own, it just didn't materialize. He was able to regroup very quickly, use the skills and the training that he had already developed in his life, and created a new goal to drive him to success. And boy, has he found success. So I hope you have found some things in this interview as well that are going to help you to look closer and be better. Thanks again for listening to Examine Leadership Podcast.